Thank you, Longpo. I really appreciate today's Dharma talk because I would say probably in the last month and a half, I have been struggling. And I'll put it to you that it was like a low mental state. But the question is, because it has been on my mind, that I would say for the last year and a half, my practice has felt solid. I've loved the teachings. I've loved my practice. But I have wondered whether I have worked too hard at it. And is that a question that you could address? Working too hard at teachings and such incredible teachings from at least two significant teachers within this tradition. But it's the question of working too hard at it. Thank you.
Very good question, and probably relevant to many, many people. We have our wish to be free from suffering, to be happy. But in our efforts to attain that, we have to, balance our efforts and manage our efforts, because wishing alone isn't enough. Wanting the freedom from suffering, wanting the happiness isn't enough. We also have to create the causes, and that can be quite a long-term activity. So you have to pace yourself. If you run a marathon, you can't sprint off in the first 100 meters and burn out, and then you've got nothing left to finish the marathon. You've got to learn how to keep going. So you have to learn how to balance your efforts. Even the Buddha had this problem. You probably know the story of him meditating before he was enlightened, and he had the vision of the three-string lute. And you play a lute, and if one string is too tight, meaning if you're trying too hard in your practice, you get tense, you get burnt out. And if you have a lute and the string is too tight, you pluck it, it doesn't sound good. Similarly, some people, their problem is not trying too hard, it's not trying hard enough. They just, they think practice is a good idea, but they don't really get around to it, and they're more indulgent or more distracted. So that's like the lute string that's too loose, and you don't get a good sound. And the third string is the string that is tightened just enough, not too tight, not too loose, and you pluck it and it sounds good. That's one of our constant reflections in the practice. What is my effort like? Is it too tight, too loose, too much, too little? And one way you notice the results of your efforts is you look at the states of mind that are coming up. And if you're creating unnecessary stress, this is something that, again, the Buddha said, the noble ones, they don't do this. They don't create unnecessary stress for themselves. They've learned that amount of effort and the way to practice where if, there's no stress to be experienced, well, don't create it out of nothing. When we're trying too hard in something, we're often creating stress where we don't need to. We're having too much desire for results. We're pushing too hard. Sometimes we're just not reflecting on what we're doing. So we just do. That can be meditation, learning things, chanting, learning the Dhamma, helping people. Sometimes we just do. Like they say nowadays, everybody's spending all their time on technology. They say the stressful mind will just keep scrolling. And they keep scrolling through their phone. They don't know how to stop because they're stressful. There's just not enough awareness, self-awareness to stop. And the practitioner of Dhamma can be the same. They're maybe not necessarily scrolling, they might be as well, but they're just doing in an impulsive way. Just keep having to practice, keep doing it, keep doing it, and they don't know how to rest or balance their energy level, balance their effort. There's an old Chinese saying, I think they say, give 80% of your energy to what you're doing. Leave a little bit in reserve. So, sometimes you have to, even when you're practicing the Dhamma and you want to develop mindfulness and meditate and develop insight into the true nature of phenomena, you also have to look after yourself as you're doing that and find some skillful ways to rest sometimes. So sometimes you need to rest, sleep a bit more sometimes. Sometimes you change activities and just enjoy very simple but fairly harmless things like go for a walk in nature. If you're feeling stressed, burnt out, tired, just go for a walk in nature and just completely let go of everything. South Africa probably has a lot of nice bushland. Go for a nice walk in the bush. Watch out for the lions, of course. And just enjoy some of the simple pleasures of life. That's another form of happiness that then may relax you enough to come back and get into the other aspects of the practice, like meditation, listening to the Dhamma. Helping people can also be a way to relax. You help your family, help your friends, help strangers through volunteering or charity or something. You can also be a way you get burnt out, so you have to manage it. But sometimes just going and helping people, putting aside your own interest in your own practice and your desire for results and you're wanting to get enlightened, it becomes too much of a pressure on us. So we just put it aside and go and do something totally different and help somebody do something different. And then you come back to your practice with fresh eyes and you maybe feel relaxed and you can carry on. If you're just doing it with a lot of desire for results, pushing yourself, pressuring yourself, well, after a while you can feel very dry and you just lose the ability to keep practicing. It can even become something you turn away from. You lose interest in it altogether. So you have to preserve your practice by treating yourself well. Don't push yourself to the point where you're in pain or physically suffering, and don't push yourself to the point where you're just experiencing a lot of negative thoughts. If that's happening, you need to change. So you have to monitor that and review what you're doing.
So there's a typewritten question here, Luang Por. Please allow me to read it out. It's from someone by the name of Chia. How do you achieve happiness when you feel the suffering of others, Luang Por?
Say it again one more time.
How do you achieve happiness when you feel the suffering of others?
Well, there's happiness and happiness, isn't there? Obviously, if you're experiencing the suffering of others, I think a loved one close to you is suffering in some way, the happiness you're maintaining at that time may not be the happiness of sensuality, just distracting yourself, indulging yourself. It's maybe what we call the happiness of practicing metta, goodwill for that person, karuna, compassion, wishing them to be free from their suffering. These are wholesome states, wholesome emotions, which you would call happiness. But obviously they're serving a particular purpose. And in this case, somebody is suffering. So you're empathizing with them. But to really empathize with someone, you have to have some happiness there. If you're suffering and they're suffering, well, you just got two people suffering and they're probably going to make it worse, aren't they? It's a bit like COVID. You've got COVID and then you give them their COVID and everyone gets more ill and the whole thing goes downhill. So to actually empathize with someone, practice compassion, do something to help somebody, you have to have a certain level of happiness that you're able to do that. So these are things you practice. You get better at them through practice. So you learn how to help someone or be with someone who's suffering, but without taking ownership of their suffering and becoming the suffering as well and suffering with them. It's not the way to help someone is not by taking on their suffering, as it were. It's you're maintaining your wholesome or happy state of mind, and you're sharing what you can with them. And some people have a lot to share, some people have less. So you have to learn how much and how skillfully you can share what you've got. So, how can you be with this person and not get angry or not get fed up or get worried by their suffering? That's how you're monitoring what you're doing. And you're also maintaining the other quality we call upekkha, brahmavihara, where you're understanding about karma, say. So somebody you love may be suffering, but you also understand they have their karma, which is independent from you. They're related to you and you do things together, but they still have their own individual karma. And often it's beyond your ability to stop some suffering coming into their life. You maybe not be able to stop them getting ill or falling over or failing their exam or having a problem at work, whatever it is. You may not be able to stop that happening. So you also have to have upekkha to accept, no, this is some karma that's come up at this time. There are causes and conditions beyond my control that have led to this, but I'll help them through it in whatever way you can. I'll empathize with their suffering. I'll see what I can do to assist them if it's possible. But you maintain the equanimity, understanding that they're experiencing their karma. Because if you yourself, when you're experiencing their suffering, go into more suffering yourself, through your attachment, your worry, you're going to drag yourself down and them down maybe, and maybe you can't help them at all. Maybe even make them worse. Like, it's like when you have a kid who's fallen over and they're crying, and maybe you have so much love and attachment for the kid that you start crying too, and they see mum or dad crying, they're only going to make them worse, isn't it? They need someone who's calm, reassuring. It may be difficult, challenging in that moment, but you're calm, reassuring, and that's what they need to get out of their own suffering, their state of crying about their painful knee or whatever. It's the same with animals, isn't it? Like here in the forest, we have lots of animals, and occasionally they get hurt, and you come across them. The more you want to cuddle them and play with them because of your attachment to them, usually the worse it is. Often all you have to do is put them somewhere safe and let them recover by themselves, and then they'll fly off if it's a bird, or hop off if it's a kangaroo. But if you hang around and they're suffering and then you're suffering, what can we do? And you're caught into your own doubts and uncertainty and anxiety about their suffering, you're going to make that animal worse, because they get more confused and maybe they die of shock. And that's happened before. And people have been cuddling little birds that have hurt themselves to the point where the bird dies of shock. So sometimes you have to practice upekkha as well. You've got your goodwill, but then you put the animal that's hurt down, you check on them from a distance, and then you let them go. And after a while, they're okay. People are like that in their own way as well. Sometimes if we get too attached, we mess things up, and we can't see what needs to be done because our thoughts are not clear, our mind is not calm. So we need to balance our compassion with some detachment, some upekkha. Therefore, we can see what we need to do. So like the ideal is maybe a doctor or a nurse in a emergency ward, and they can go and treat that person, and they have an interest to help that person be free from their suffering, but they can't get too attached to the person because they have to keep their balance and their clear-headedness so they can see what treatment is needed. If the doctor got too attached to each patient, then of course every time someone dies or doesn't recover from their illness, the doctor is going to become very depressed, or after a while they're not going to be able to function, are they? So we have to learn how to maintain our mindfulness, our equanimity, practice compassion, but don't let the attachment cloud our thinking.
Thank you, Sadhu Lampa. So the next question is from Sherry. Sherry's question is like this. It is about practicing dana. So what I often experience is that I felt happy and did the best when I prepared the offering to Sangha, as I realized it was a precious opportunity that one can get when we have enough good karma. But when in the process of giving the dana, what Sherry, the person, usually does is that she says, I try to focus on the present moment, which is to bring attention back to the body, the awareness of the body movement, and make sure that I offer it with care and with full respect. And after giving the dana to the sangha, I feel satisfied and peaceful instead of feeling happy. So she's asking the question, it is said that with the best mental state in practicing dana, it is to feel happy before, during, and after the dana. In her situation, during the giving process and after the giving of the dana, Sherry often doesn't feel the happiness, but feels the peace. So is this wrong? Can Lumpur please comment on what she should do to improve her mental state in giving the dana? Thank you so much for the advice.
Well, the description sounds like it's all going in the right direction. I'm not sure each person's sort of definition of peace or happiness varies, but in my definition, peace is something more deeper or profound than happiness may be. So if having offered dana, you feel a sense of peace, I'd say that's good. Keep doing it. The main thing is to keep your mind in a wholesome state. So to maintain the sense of being at ease, be calm, you could say happy, or peaceful as you do it before, during, and after. Because as you probably know, sometimes as we do dana or afterwards, we doubt it. We think, oh, I didn't do a good job, or I shouldn't have done this, or why did I do that? Or somebody else says something about us and criticizes us or comments on us, and then we feel negative. Or maybe we do dana with a desire to get something in return. I'm doing this so I get other people's recognition, or that I can attain something in the future, or get something better in my life. And then we can become disappointed later if we don't get what we want, and we feel, oh, my dana was a waste of time or something. So there are many negative thoughts, greedy, selfish, or even angry thoughts that can slip into the practice of dana. So our first aim is to avoid that, to make sure that doesn't happen, or try to be on guard, maintain the mindfulness so that the mind doesn't slip into negativity or doubt. And if we are doing that successfully, it's good enough. You just do it. And it's good karma when you offer dana. If it brings a sense of peace, that's good. And then probably that leads on to wanting to do it again, or seeing the benefit of doing it again. So if another chance comes up, you do it again, and you're reinforcing these wholesome qualities. And that's the aim of it, is so that it becomes part of who you are, what we call barami. So you have dana barami. You are quite at ease, sharing, helping, offering things to others, sangha, but also other people and other situations as well. Your aim is to get to the point where it's just part of your character, part of who you are. You don't always have to practice dana all the time, every day or whatever, but it's there and you can draw on it. And when the occasion is there, you can do it. That's your aim. And of course, it will lead on to many other good qualities. So if you're feeling peaceful after doing dana, then say you go off and meditate. Well, probably you find your meditation goes a bit better because you can remember the dana you've done, feel good about that, feel at peace. Then you meditate and you've got energy to meditate perhaps. All kinds of good things flow on from doing dana. And just if you recollect that, then you'll want to keep doing it. But like you say, do it with mindfulness, do it with awareness, and try not to be seeking anything in return.
Anumodana. Thank you so much, Lumpur. As you have given us a lot of dana today, a dana through your teachings and your wise reflections, we'll all take this back in peace and sit in our meditation cushion and contemplate about it this evening. And I think we should also be compassionate towards you and the Sangha. I know it's very late for you in the night now. And perhaps also take permission to take leave from you, and wish you all well.
Okay, very nice to talk to you all tonight. We'll wish you well for the coming week, and we'll finish by paying respects to the Triple Gem.